welcome to episode 278 of the Daily Fantasy Edge. My name is Adam Levitan. I'm one of the analysts here at DraftKings. I'm the father of the most beautiful beast in the world, Jerry. And we are coming off of a sensible week one. Dalvin Cook in the nut spot. Yep. Christian McCaffrey in a shootout with no backups. Yep. Tyreek Hill, shadowed by Jalen Ramsey initially, but Sammy Watkins still goes off. Yep. Deshaun Jackson revenge game in his heart. Yep. Austin Eckler proving he's hashtag good and running back barely matters. Definitely yes. Lamar Jackson's extremely fantasy friendly game against the fish tank. That hit too. Evan Ingram with Beckham gone. No Golden Tate against the Cowboys zone. That went off also. So really, I thought a lot of what popped off in week one made a lot of sense. And when that happens, that's when you see hardworking people, winning a lot of tournaments, winning a lot of money, etc. Shout out to Head Chopper. Shout out to Dink Piece, Drew Dinkmeyer, etc., etc. As for me, I got completely buried in main slate cash. Went Chubb over Carson. Didn't play McCaffrey. The last 2v2 I was on, Curtis Samuel and Travis Kelce against Adam Thielen. And Evan Ingram really, really hurt. Basically, the week came down to which three of the six obvious, or what I thought was obvious running backs you played. And I thought anyone who went outside of these six running backs in cash, I think that's someone we'd want to play again. And the six that I'm talking about were Christian McCaffrey, Nick Chubb, Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, Chris Carson, Austin Eckler. Just from a price and touch and situation standpoint, those six I thought were so far and away ahead of all other running backs, and really so far and away and ahead of every other player on the slate. And four of them smashed. So if you had three of them, you likely rolled. If you played Chubb and Lenny, like I did, well, you could have been saved if you played Lamar or Ingram, but otherwise, you were in big trouble. And I know what people are thinking, right? Like, it's so thin, these 2v2s, the margin is so small. There's 40-point swings in these 2v2s, and you want to make an excuse for yourself. And honestly, sometimes that's where my head goes also. It's like, well, I was on it, but I just missed on one player or whatever. I made one bad decision here or there. But I mean, that's the whole game, like that's cash at higher stakes. It's going to come down to a lot of 2v2s and 3v3s. That's where we win. So, if you're going to every slate look back and be like, oh yeah, well, I had it and I just got unlucky because I went with this 2v2 that had a similar projection to the other one. Like, I'm not going to make that excuse, it's just have to be better. So no excuses for me. I know Travis Kelce was close to a huge game, but the bottom line on that 2v2 is I think that you could make a really good case that Kelce was appropriately priced, whereas Evan Ingram was severely underpriced given his spot and matchup. And, I've kind of been of the belief all offseason that these outrageous seasons from tight ends last year were more outlier than norm for the position. I think Kelce, Ertz, and Kittle will all have fine years and huge games from time to time, but they would each be, I think, hard pressed to match what they did last year. So paying for their last year's production, as I did with Kelce, I think was bad, particularly when we had Hunter Henry and Evan Ingram in such great cheap spots. But yeah, I was fine with Leonard Fournette. His usage was ridiculous. He was handled over 90% of the running back touches for the Jaguars, including a ton of the pass game work, overwhelming majority of the pass game work, like 90% of the running back targets against the Chiefs. Fine with that. Nick Chubb, maybe we could have made a case that, yeah, Nick Chubb is not an every down player. So he was not, he was similar to the outlook for Chris Carson or Austin Eckler, but just in a worse matchup. And maybe you could have made that case. Nick Chubb still handled a ton of the RB touches for the Browns. And I was okay with that. The good news for me is I did go Eckler and Evan Ingram at 4 p.m. only. Had a really, really good team at 4 p.m. only, which made a big difference for me. And when I talk about, not hedging within main slates, and I always mention, one way you can hedge is by playing the mini slates. And so, I made it a priority to play Eckler. And and everything room at 4 o'clock. And obviously that made a difference. But then honestly, for the first time ever, the first time I think in my entire life, I had a GPP team kind of bail me out and actually make me a winner on the slate somehow, on the week somehow, even though I got buried in main slate cash. So crazy. I only made 3 tournament lineups. I made them at the last minute. One went absolutely nuclear for 246 points. Didn't have it in anything higher stakes, but still, 60 times my buy-ins, like so crazy. I did think that the move for GPPs was pretty clear, at least for me. You still play 3 of the 6 lock running backs that I previously mentioned, but then you get wild with your stacks or at wide receiver and at tight end, et cetera, et cetera. So I went Dalvin, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler in this lineup, in this GPP lineup. And then I started to get a little wild. I went naked Lamar Jackson, Odell Beckham, Calvin Ridley, Sterling Shepard, TJ Hawkinson, and 49ers D. I know people are going to say, why on TJ Hawkinson? I just didn't think you could find a better spot for the Lions offense all year. Like, impossible. You just couldn't find one against this Arizona team that's going to play so fast. And I thought they'd be extremely inefficient, which is kind of the way that it was going for the first 2.5, 3 quarters before Arizona kind of clicked a little bit on offense. But yeah, I mean, the Lions are going to run more plays against Arizona. Arizona's defense in secondary is so bad. And Hawkinson, if you watched in preseason, was extremely productive and really awesome in preseason in limited action. So I felt good about playing Hawkinson at 3,100. And then 49ers defense created so much leverage against Jameis kind of chalk. And we know Jameis was popular and Godwin was popular and Mike Evans was popular. And I think OJ Howard had a bit of ownership too. So playing 49ers defense gives us a lot of leverage against them. And then we also have huge mismatch between San Francisco's star-studded front 7, front 4, and the Bucs offensive line. And then a situation where we know Jameis is going to drop back a ton, and Jameis is one of the most turnover-prone quarterbacks in the league. So the more I thought about that, I wanted to use 49ers defense very much in cash, obviously, very much in tournaments. Obviously, getting 27 points from a defense is a massive outlier, and you have to get extremely lucky to get stuff like that. Anyways, shout out to listener JDE Buck, who easily won the 4-man. Iced Al and Peter and I. He went Crowder over Samuel, which I thought was interesting. We know Sam Darnold has a major tendency to throw to his slot receivers, and Adam Gase as well. So that was interesting history play there. And also, he went up to Christian McCaffrey, went down to Hunter Henry. Great job, man. JD Bush just absolutely smashed us. Okay, let's get to the Listener League. I was actually a bit surprised, but it filled easily on Sunday morning. The full 10K entries filled. Crazy. So we had a $100,000 rake-free tournament with flat payouts, $10 buy-in, 3 entry max. Wild. Like, for sure the best tournament on DraftKings. And because you guys filled it, the people at DraftKings decided to not hashtag make it smaller. They decided to hashtag keep it the same. So running it back this week, the exact same format, I believe, $10 buy-in, 100K prize pool. Need to fill 10,000 entries. The way you get in, very simple. Go to DK Playbook. Find the logo for this podcast. Find the link there. It's easier on the desktop, but I'm not going to get into big convoluted instructions. You guys know how to use the Google machine. Find DK Playbook. Find the logo for this podcast. Find the link to the contest there. I mean, it's an outrageously good tournament and structure. As for the Week 1 Listener League, it went to TSANS with an outrageous score of 275.8. Of course, you know, the lineup structure that won all the money this week, the one that I already mentioned, 3 of the 6 locked running backs, as I said. He went Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, Chris Carson, and then get weird at wide receiver. You know, Sammy Watkins, in hindsight, you know, obviously he benefited from Tyreek Hill's injury and et cetera, et cetera. But man, you know, with the way the Jags play and the way Jalen Ramsey projected to shadow Tyreek Hill anyways, in hindsight, Sammy Watkins definitely should have been a more priority play. Kenny Galladay, who I loved, he also played, and Michael Gallup. You know, you can make a reasonable case for all 3 of those wide receivers as just good plays in a vacuum, but all 3 went overlooked. And then let's talk stack. He went Dak, which made sense since he had Gallup, or maybe he started with Dak and then he went on Gallup and brought it back with Evan Ingram. And then Jets D at just 3.5% owned. We know that Josh Allen, I like watching Josh Allen play because he's aggressive and he kind of plays like a street baller, but he's extremely turnover prone and erratic and inaccurate. So yeah, the more that I think about it, man, this lineup from TSANS was an awesome lineup, thoughtful, made a lot of sense, and 275.8 points is just absolutely outrageous. In second place was Ryan Pack. He went Mahomes, Watkins, and then Chris Conley. So we knew that D.D. Westbrook was going to be popular. By the time that Sunday came, I had actually projected D.D. Westbrook to be the highest owned wide receiver on the slate. And I think that ended up coming true. He was around somewhere like 28, 29% owned, I believe. So by playing Conley, you could just pick up a ton of leverage off D.D. Westbrook. So I thought that was sharp. Of course, he played 3 of the 6 running backs. He went Eckler, Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin, had Chris Godwin that got himself for a little bit of chalk, and then Evan Ingram, the kind of one of the best or the best tight end play. Easy game. 274 points for Ryan Pack. In third place was D Driver 21. Mahomes, Watkins, Kelsey again, assuming that Tyreek Hill gets shut down by Jalen Ramsey. You play Mahomes, Watkins, Kelsey, brought it back with Leonard Fournette, which actually, didn't work out. And actually, D Driver didn't play 3 of the 6 running backs that I'm talking about. He had Uncle Lenny and Christian McCaffrey, but then he went Evan Ingram in his flex with Kelsey. Then he had some one-offs that just went absolutely ham. John Brown, obviously fits so well in this matchup with Josh Allen, both against the Jets D, Michael Gallup, Niners D. So nice job there by D Driver 21. All right. Now it is time, guys. We finally made it. It's time to tell you guys about Roman. Guys are terrible at taking care of their health. Whether it's a knee injury, bad back, or something worse, guys are usually more comfortable rubbing some dirt on it than seeing a doctor. I'm guilty of it myself. The same is true, though, for erectile dysfunction. Studies show that 70% of guys who experience ED don't get treated for it. Thankfully, Roman created an easy way to chat with a doctor online. With Roman, you can get medical care for ED, if appropriate, from the comfort and privacy of your home. You can handle everything online in a convenient, discreet manner. Getting started is simple. Go to roman.com/edge and complete an online visit. If your doctor decides that treatment will be appropriate, they can prescribe genuine medication that can be delivered in discreet packaging right to your door with free 2-day shipping. Guys, go talk to the doctor. Erectile dysfunction can be tough to tackle, but it's really important to get checked out. With a Roman, it's easy to connect to a doctor. Just go to roman.com/edge to get a free online visit and free 2-day shipping. That's getroman.com/edge for a free visit to get started. Getroman.com/edge. I guess it was only a matter of time, guys. We've talked about too much sick stuff on this podcast. Talked about #TeamSex too much to not finally get a Roman ad on here. So shout out to us. Okay. Anyways, get into the listener league this week. Fill it. #make it bigger, which, the guys at Roman, if you guys want to use that, if you guys want to start using that slogan, you can. But seriously, we talk so much about game selection on here. It would be embarrassing not to fill the listener league. Get in there. All right. Now it is time for the listener questions. Producer Luke, hit the theme music. All right, question 1 comes from Senor Big Cheston. He says, in GPPs, is it feasible to put the same lineup into the same contest multiple times? So what Senor is referring to here is what we would call a train, and that simply means putting the same lineup into a GPP a bunch of times. This is almost always going to be negative EV from a theoretical sense. Think about the way that GPPs are structured with just an outrageous amount of money up top. For example, in this week's Millie Maker, 22.2% of the $4.5 million prize pool will go to first place. 31.1% of the total prize pool will go in the top 10. So if we're playing optimally, our only goal, it's not to cash, it's not to whatever, run a train and make some money. If we're playing optimally, our only goal is to take as many shots as we can at getting to the top where all the money is. The best way to do this isn't by putting in the same lineup, of course. It's by firing in different lineups. Now, all that said, I have run trains before, particularly in tournaments and situations where I think my train actually can get to the top. But that's not large field, regular season NFL. That would be, preseason NFL or WNBA or whatever. So generally speaking, the answer here, Senor Big Cheston, is no. All right, question 2 comes from one of the best friends of the show, currently living his best life up in New York. It's the Dink Piece himself. He says, have you replaced predictive modeling with quote unquote author when people ask you about your job? No, I have not, Dink. The whole goal of the predictive analytics play when people ask what I do is just to stop them in their tracks, right? Like they don't know what it means. It sounds fancy. Sounds like I actually have a real job. It's good. We can move on. The problem if you say author is then they ask you, oh, what have you written? And then I'd have to say, well, you see, there's this book, well, actually it's an ebook. Well, actually it's just a Q&A. And yeah, it's titled after this, sensual thing that I do with my dog, skin to fur. And then, oh yeah, it's about gambling and DFS and germs and stuff. And now their mind is just blown, right? Like now they're just like, they think I'm just a total psychopath. And then, the worst part would be if they actually go and try to find this book, it's on Amazon or whatever. They go find it and they read it. And then God, then they would know about all my problems. So yeah, pretty much no brainer for me to stick to the predictive analytics response. Question 3 comes from the DFS GOAT. He says, thoughts on playing a large percentage of a certain player when doing 20 max and 150 max, like over 60%. For example, playing 60% Dalvin Cook because you felt he was that good of a play. Yeah, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask here because I don't really MME or play a lot of lineups in NFL that much. But my opinion is no. Like, there's nothing wrong with playing a ton of a guy in MME. Like, you should be playing the guys that you like a ton. If you think he's a better play than the market does, well, that's where an edge is gained, right? But I think more importantly, maybe I think of your GPPs in the form of stacks and correlation, and then build in your core players. So, like, if you want to do a Dak, Amari, Gallup, Ingram stack, fine. Now let's get to our core plays like Dalvin or Eckler or whoever else and see what fits there. So you find your core and then you rotate around it, but have a lot of that core so that when it goes off, you set yourself up to have a top percentile outcome via one of the satellite stacks or pieces that you have. So yeah, you want to play 60% Dalvin Cook, 80% Eckler, like 70% CMC. Like I have no problem with that. Like if you love these guys, we need to be in on them, I think. Question 4 comes from Double Gator. He says, my girlfriend knows I'm frugal and practical. We will be getting married. She claims for a variety of monetary and ethical reasons, she doesn't want a diamond engagement ring. Is this a trap? This is a tough one. I do think engagement rings are incredibly stupid, right? The crazy part of it is you can get some massive ring, it looks ridiculously like striking, like your hashtag how rich. But actually, it's a shitty diamond and therefore it's cheap. But if you go for the top quality diamond, it looks small and then you're allegedly how poor. But in reality, you actually spent more money. But of course, the only one that can actually tell the quality of these diamonds, normal people on the street, your girl, they can't tell. The only people that can tell the quality of the diamonds are these alleged gemologists. And they actually have to look at it with like a microscope under the right light to even see it. It's just a crazy thing. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know your girl, Double Gator. She sounds cool. She's telling the truth. One thing I'd never recommend is doing something just because that's the way it's always been done, right? Like that's a thoughtless, surefire way to never evolve or make society better, or make our lives better. So like just because it's some tradition, I don't know where it came from for girls to get engagement rings, really expensive diamond rings from guys when they're about to get married, when they're proposed to, like, I don't know, man. I don't think you have to do it. And if you do want to go the ring route, just get a grade Z diamond or whatever. Like no one will know. Question 5 comes from P Walnuts. He says, has it gotten to the point where we should just say no to Jameis Winston in cash, no matter what the EV is? Of course, I'm not swearing off a player just because he lost me money, right? I'm going to reevaluate every situation each week individually. But yeah, I mean, with some of these guys like Jameis and maybe Uncle Lenny, maybe there's something off about them that just lowers their floor that like we're not seeing. And people will say, well, yeah, they're just not that good at football, and maybe. But regardless, yeah, I think, evaluating these situations, and if you think that the range of outcomes on Jameis and Lenny or whoever else is lower than what I think or what the field thinks, like, don't be afraid to go for a fade. That's where a lot of the money is going to be made. It's not necessarily in finding the right guys. It's also, you have to be off the wrong guys. But don't just do it just because Jameis played poorly in week 1, like, it's not over for him. We know he's extremely turnover prone, and maybe not that good in real life, but he's going to have games, I still think, where he's going to put up huge fantasy numbers. Question 6 comes from Lee Keel Kuhn. He says, thoughts on adults wearing jerseys? What about jersey tuckers, the ones that tuck them into their jeans? And even worse, the ones that tuck and wear 00 with their own name on it. Come on, give it up, dude. Yeah, I'm actually totally fine with wearing jerseys. I've been collecting jerseys my whole life. You can't tell me not to wear them. Some of my favorites. I have a Ryan Longwell Packers. I have a Charlie Batch Lions. I have a Ben Gordon on UConn. I have a Chris Paul on Wake Forest. I have a Tom Gugliotta Bullets. So yeah, I love my jerseys. I don't have a problem wearing them. However, one thing that you mentioned that I'm extremely against is tucking anything into jeans. And, I'm no fashion dude, believe me, like, I'm a total slob. It's actually embarrassing, the way I dress. But God, the tucked in shirt into jeans just makes me cringe every time I see it. I'm not really sure why. Like, I'm sure there's a ton of sexy dudes out there doing it. But it's just not for me. All right. I hope that helps. Again, please fill the listener league, 10K entries, $10 buy-in, 3-entry max, outrageously good tournament. We will be back on Thursday with Al and Pete for the 3-man. For producer Luke. For Jerry. I am Adam. Good luck, everybody. We are promoters at DraftKings and also avid fans. Our usernames are Adam Levitan, Al Smizzle, and CSU Ram 88. We may sometimes play on our personal accounts in the games that we offer advice on. Although we have expressed our personal view on the games and strategies in this podcast, they do not necessarily reflect the views of DraftKings, and we also may deploy different players and strategies than what we recommended in this podcast.